Hi and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire with my favorite crafty things of 2016. Today we're going to talk about coloring. Now please keep in mind that I am not a coloring expert. It's not my expertise in the crafting world. There are many people out there who are much better at it than me. However, I do it a lot and I just kind of keep it basic. So I use the basic markers, the basic watercolor. I will link below to the experts in each of the areas if you want to learn more about what is best if you're really good at a particular type of coloring. What I'm sharing here is maybe what beginners could start with, or if you struggle with a certain type of coloring, what products might be best for you. I'm kind of looking for the best kind of all-around crafting coloring tools, not like the expert coloring tools. I hope that makes a little bit of sense, and I hope this is helpful to you. So you may see me use other markers and watercolors in my videos, but the ones I'm sharing today are the ones that I always come back to because I like them so much. Now I'm going to demonstrate coloring on two different types of cardstock mostly in this video, just to demonstrate that the type of paper you use is incredibly important when you're coloring. Now the bigger piece is neenah Classic Crest Solar White. This is the white cardstock I use most because it's bright white and you can stamp on it beautifully. It takes stamping wonderfully. The strip that you see there is Strathmore Bristol Smooth. I like this for coloring. The reason it's a long strip is it was just a scrap that I was using and I didn't want it to go to waste. So I'm going to demonstrate coloring on both of these. Now the markers that I've come back to over and over again for years is the tombow dual brush markers. These are beautiful. They go on paper like butter, and there are many techniques that you can do with them, and they hold up for a long time. So there is a brush tip on one end and a fine tip on the other, and you can see when you color onto cardstock, it goes on smoothly and you don't really get lines from where you color back and forth. It blends okay on the neenah white cardstock, but not as well as it does on the Bristol, which I'll show you in a moment. You can also use a Dove blender pen to kind of help blend it, but again, this is a regular cardstock and the ink is really absorbing into it, so it doesn't want to move much when it's put down, but you can do great basic smooth coloring with the tombow markers on the regular cardstock. Now these are water-based inks or water-based pens that are odor-free and are just good basic markers. My kids love them too. Now on the Bristol cardstock, it's like smoother and it doesn't absorb the ink right away as much, so you can blend more on it. You'll see a significant difference between the two as I work with them. This is something to keep in mind. Maybe you have a marker that's not working well on the paper that you're using. You might want to try another. And the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock is great for coloring. Notice how with the Dove blender pen, you can kind of pull that color and soften it out. You can also blend two colors that overlap with the Dove blender pen. Now the Dove blender pen does come with a refill, so you can refill it as much as you want. And any color that gets on the tip, you just want to scribble off. Scribbling it off on the Bristol takes a little bit of effort because it's not really absorbing the colorway. But if you scribble it off on just scrap paper, the color comes right off and you'll have a nice clean tip, as you'll see here. Now you can also use the tombow markers for watercolor. There are a few ways you can do this. One is to go ahead and take it right to your paper. Now my water was dirty, or my brush was dirty, so you'll see it's kind of muddying up there because the brush was dirty. But you can see the water moves the color on the Bristol, not so much on the neenah. So what I find is I use my neenah cardstock for stamping and my Bristol for coloring. Another thing you can do with the tombow is scribble the color onto an acrylic mount or a craft sheet and pick up the color with a wet brush and paint that like watercolor. On this piece here, I'm actually using watercolor paper just to demonstrate the watercolor. This is Holtz watercolor paper, but you could use any watercolor paper you may have. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not great with watercolor. So if you give me tubes of watercolors, my heart starts beating fast and I get all anxious. So this is a better way for me to watercolor. By scribbling the marker onto the acrylic block and picking it up with water, I can kind of control it better and I can predict better how it's going to move. You could even use a Dove blender pen on the watercolor paper to get really controlled blending or to kind of fade the color out. Now, if you like shimmer, you can take your Spectrum Noir clear shimmer pen or your Wink of Stella clear shimmer pen. I'll talk about these later. And you can pick up the color with that and paint with that. And you end up with like a watercolor look that has some shimmer to it. I like doing this because it's very controlled. There's not a lot of liquid coming out, so I don't end up with a mess. It really works well for me. So I find the Tombow dual brush markers to be an inexpensive coloring option. There are many ways that you can use them, and especially if you're using a cardstock like the Strathmore Bristol, you can get great blending and get great results with very little effort. I believe they come in 96 colors, and I definitely went out and bought all 96 last year because I like them so much. But keep in mind you can blend your own colors. So you could get your basic colors and start with that and create like your own blended colors, layer the colors on top of each other. A lot of things you can do with these. These markers and one of my shimmer pens are my favorite on-the-go coloring items. Some of the packs of the Tombow dual brush pens comes with a colorless blender, which works just like the Dove blender pen I showed you before, so you can also use that. So here on the Bristol cardstock, I'm putting down some bright pink and some blue, and then using the Tombow colorless blender pen to kind of blend those together, and you end up with like a purple color in the middle. So you can also use that to get some good coloring results. So this is a great line of markers to consider. I find the tips hold up nicely over time, and I haven't had any dry out, so I've been very happy with this purchase. This has been on my favorites list for some time now, and I'm guessing that it'll probably stay there. Another coloring tool that I really enjoy is the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. These have been popular for the past couple years, and I know people really like them. Now, these actually have a real brush tip, like a paintbrush. So they perform a little bit differently, but you can do a lot of the same techniques as I showed you with the Tombow markers. You can take these tip to tip without worrying about the tips. Same thing with the Tombow. But the fact that it has this brush tip, you can kind of paint it on more if you prefer to do that. Now, I was just showing it on the neenah. Here I'm going to kind of spread the tip out so you can see the bristles. Now, here it is on the neenah. I do find that these perform best if you're using that Bristol Strathmore cardstock, like I'm showing here, or a watercolor paper. Then you can get the colors to work together beautifully with very little effort. In fact, I can make two colors go together better with these than I can with my Copic markers. You can also use that Dove blender pen that I showed you before with the Tombow. You can use those with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. Actually, it's quite amazing the number of things that you can use that Dove blender pen for. You can also use your shimmer pens like I'm doing here. Then you end up with beautiful color and some shine to it. You could use a water brush pen, but you really don't want to put too much water or moisture onto the Bristol Strathmore. You want to keep that kind of dry. A little bit is okay, as you see here, but if you're going to use a lot of water, you definitely want to switch over to a watercolor paper. Now, there are wonderful watercolor papers out there. I'm going to talk about papers in another video coming soon. I always stick with the Tim Holtz watercolor paper or Ranger watercolor paper because it is bright white. I really like a bright white paper. Now with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush, you can also scribble onto an acrylic block, pick up the color with a wet brush, and use it as a watercolor. Now, I believe these Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens come in over 80 colors, and I've done several technique videos showing different ways to use them, and also have an ink chart download that I'll share with you in my YouTube description below. You don't need that many colors. Notice here I overlap 2 colors, and you can create new colors. So just get the basics and work with those. So part of what I wanted to share in this video is that the paper that you work on is just as important. I use neenah white cardstock for all my stamping, but I've switched to using the Strathmore Bristol, that's the pad you see here, for all of my coloring besides Copics. We'll talk about that in a moment. The Bristol comes in the pad that you see here, and I go ahead and I cut that down into 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch pieces so that they're ready to go for card making. So stamping goes on the neenah, coloring goes on the Bristol. So if you're getting frustrated by a different type of coloring tool, you might want to try a different cardstock. That might make a big difference in your results. I also still enjoy coloring with Copic markers. Now, Copic markers are, I would call, a beast of a marker because there are so many of them. There are so many things you can do with them and so many things to understand about them. But to be honest with you, I keep it basic. I just have the colors that I reach for all the time. I will link to my list of colors that I use the most. They were the colors I used the most 3 years ago, and they're still the colors I use the most to this day. Now with coloring with Copic markers, I always use the neenah white cardstock. So this is the cardstock I normally use just for stamping, but it works great for Copics. So the only coloring I do on neenah is my Copics. So with these, you can get wonderful blending. These are alcohol-based markers. They're permanent, they're refillable. You can even replace the nib of them, but they do cost quite a bit more than the other options that I showed you. So if you're going to jump into the world of Copics, I encourage you to only get a few colors and get them in blending sets. You need a couple colors that will blend together well. You can also get the colorless blender pen, which I'm using here, and it basically kind of erases the color, so you can create fun patterns on any coloring that you can do. Now, I will link to Kathy Rakusin. She's a good friend of mine who is the master at coloring with Copics. So if you really want to learn some great techniques, you can learn those from her. I just use them for basic coloring. But keep in mind, they are a good marker to use if you're going to do a ton of coloring because they are high quality and refillable. The next product I wanted to talk about is mini distress inks. Now, although these are ink pads, I use them as a coloring tool. I mostly use these for coloring, not for stamping. Now I'm recommending the minis because they're more economical, and you gotta face it, the little tin is just so darn cute, but you could also get the full ink pads. Now I normally use these for a watercolor look. I'm not great with regular watercolors. These are much better for me. What I do is I press it right onto an acrylic block and pick it up with a wet paintbrush and paint away onto a watercolor paper. These are beautiful colors. There are many colors available. There are reinkers available, and there are many techniques you can do with these inks. Now, the reason I use these inks over other inks for a watercolor look is that they react really well with water. They don't get muddy. They do lots of fun techniques, and you can have a ball with these. So this is something to keep in mind. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy watercolors. You might want to just try the inks that you have. My friend Christina Werner is an amazing watercolor artist. She's amazing, and she does watercolor all the time with her distress inks and gets incredible looking results. Okay, so you can also, instead of water, you can use your Dove blender pen to pick up some of the color of a distress ink and use that to color. So this is another product that you can take on the go. You could put some of your distress inks into a little tin, take your Dove blender pen, and you can do some coloring on the go. Now, my favorite way to kind of get a watercolor look is to totally fake it and use distress inks and my shimmer pen. And that way I can kind of control how the color's going down, get beautiful results, and then there's a shimmer to it when it dries. I always like to add shimmer to my cards. Not sure why, it's just my thing. So you can do that with distress inks also. Distress inks are also wonderful for color blending. So you can use an ink blending tool or some other inking tool with the distress inks to add color to a background. I just did a video recently where I showed how to cut a mask for a stamped image, for a simple stamped image, put the mask around your stamped image, and then color in the image using some ink, distress ink and an ink blending tool. Very fast coloring with gorgeous results. Now, before we move on, I just want to talk a little bit about the shimmers that I've been using here. This is a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. This is a clear pen that puts down some shimmer. They come in colors with shimmer, but I use the clear mostly, and it's great to use with different markers or inks as you've seen today. There's also the clear Wink of Stella shimmer pen, which is very similar. I just wanted to show you when they dry what the results are. The top one is the Spectrum Noir. The bottom one is the Wink of Stella. And you can see they're pretty close. I think the Wink of Stella has a little bit more of a champagne color look to it instead of a silver. You can see they are similar tips, except for I find the Wink of Stella is smaller, so it's easier to control. But I do think the Spectrum Noir is a better price point. So there are a few things to compare, and I did compare them in a video, and I'll link to that here. Another thing that I sometimes use with my markers or my inks is Sparkle Shimmer Spritz. This is a beautiful product also. You can pour a little bit of into a bowl and use it with a brush if you wanted to, or you can just spray it over your card, but they work great with the markers too. So I just sprayed some quickly onto a piece of cardstock, and I'm going to dry it so you can see the color of it. It looks very similar to the Wink of Stella. Really, I think you can use any of these along with markers to get a beautiful shimmer result. Just something else to consider if you like that look. I will be talking more about these in another video, but I did want to show you that these 4 things are great to use along with some of your coloring tools, like your water-based markers. Now, I also wanted to talk about colored pencils. There are many great colored pencils on the market, but I seem to always go back to the ones that I've used from the beginning, and that is the Prismacolor colored pencils. Sorry, my pencils got all messed up when I took them to a craft retreat here, so they're all jumbled up. Anyways, I have used these Prismacolor pencils for many years. In fact, I just took my older set, they were all getting really small, and I gave those to my kids, and I bought this set a year or so ago, so you can see they look brand new. Now, Prismacolor colored pencils are very high quality. I do know that supposedly they switched manufacturers recently, and some people say that the lead breaks more often. Well, I read about this online, and I found a trick that seemed to work. I just wrap my colored pencil in a heating pad for a few minutes, and that softens the lead inside the pencil and causes those breaks to go away inside. There are some other tricks that involve ovens and microwaves. I'm not trying any of that. You can try it at your own risk. Just Google about it, and people have found some great solutions because these are incredible pencils. They're soft and they blend beautifully. Here I am using a neenah white cardstock. You can actually use the white colored pencil to blend. So you put the 2 colors down and then you can blend over it with the white. The white Prismacolor pencil is a fantastic tool to have, even if you don't have other colored pencils. And I will link to a video where I showed a white color pencil technique. Now, the fun thing about Prismacolor pencils is you can color on dark cardstocks. What I like to do is first put down a coat of the white color pencil and then put the color on top of that. You're kind of like lightening the surface first, and you can see the beautiful blending you get, especially when you put that white down first. You could even do that trick on regular white cardstock. First put the white pencil down, then blend on top of it with color, and it seems to blend better. Now, there are many wonderful techniques for colored pencils out there. My friend Sherry Carroll is fantastic with colored pencils. I'll link to her. These are easy tricks that I found for me because I'm not really a coloring artist. But colored pencils are there's something timeless about coloring with colored pencils that I enjoy so much. Another thing you can do with a white colored pencil is, say you stamp a flower with pink ink on white paper. You can add some highlights with a white colored pencil on top of that pink ink. So I encourage you to grab one of those white pencils. You can buy it individually. It's inexpensive, and try some of the techniques. Again, I'll link to some videos showing that. Okay, so I do still think colored pencils are good to have in your crafting stash. You can get a small set of Prismacolor and really blend colors together nicely. You really don't need a large set unless you think you're going to do a lot of coloring. If you find your leads are breaking, Google for some tips on fixing broken leads in Prismacolor pencils. That seems to be helping quite a few people that I've talked to. Now, I do most of my colored pencil coloring on dark cardstocks for some reason. That's just what I like. But you can also try different white cardstocks. This is the Bristol, and the Bristol's very smooth and great for getting blending with colored pencils. So once again, I do like the Bristol for a lot of coloring methods, everything except Copic. But you can also use the colored pencils on other white cardstocks too, like I showed you earlier with the neenah. So colored pencils seem to be a little more forgiving and work on more of a variety of papers. So those are the coloring tools that I seem to always reach back for. There are some other fun tools out there, other fun watercolors and such, but these are the basics if you're looking to start with something. But keep in mind, everybody's different. Some people are really good at one particular coloring technique, so I encourage you to explore and find what's best for you, and also be sure to explore what papers you're using. In my YouTube description below, I will link to some of those other artists that I talk about. Also, I will link to all the products that I talk about, but be sure to go to my blog because I'll have a discount code and giveaways there. In the middle are 2 other things worth checking out. The first is the other videos in this series. You can see the playlist there. And the second video is my coloring favorites from last year. A lot of those still ring true. Thanks so much for spending your time here with me. I hope this is helpful, and we'll see you again soon.